So, a lot of the topics that I usually pick are probably not taught in schools or not often discussed as well sometimes when it comes to relationships and life related ones in particular. So, recently, as I was in a conversation with some people, I figured that a lot of women, particularly, let's say the more beautiful ones, tend to think that men in general, and this is a belief that's very prevalent and held by almost all women that I've spoken to, that men overwhelmingly and predominantly prioritize a woman's beauty and, let's say, sexuality or sexual attractiveness as the top rated factor while choosing them for a long term relationship or marriage, anything of that particular sort. And then I started thinking, and because intuitively I've thought that I agreed in parts, but I knew it was not entirely right. And I thought I'll do a small podcast around that in terms of what someone who is looking to marry for a long-term relationship might look for in a woman, in order of, I mean, not necessarily in any order of priority, but what are the other factors that could help. And a couple of things to note here is this might actually help men who are looking to marry. Let's say you're looking for a girl, maybe you should look for some of these traits which would make sure that she is a long-term suitable partner for you. And if you're a girl and if you want to beat the competition, which you should, if you have these qualities or if you can maybe imbibe or even practice some of them, it will elevate your sexual market value compared to peers of your age. Yeah, so let's go. But generally speaking, right, men tend to be more focused on physical features of a woman than on the personality traits or you as a person or even your intellectuals, right? And this is kind of evolutionary too, right? A lot of times I've seen when we have casual chats, friends, family, or people that I talk to, um, women tend to feel a little upset that men don't look at them beyond what they can see on the external side, right? Obviously, it can be a cause of concern for some of them that the inside of me is never seen by men. Why are they always looking at the fatty parts that are visible to them or the face, etc. Right? But I mean that's just the wiring, right? And it has evolutionary reasons in terms of the reproductive value that a woman can bring in terms of looking for a partner. So on this, David Buss, I think he's from University of Texas, Austin. He evolutionary psychologist or scientist, whatever, right? He did a lot of research on this topics. Of course, you can Google about it, but what I'm probably going to talk about is not just what he said in parts. We'll probably touch upon that a little bit. But I want to give my own spin of what I think might be valuable, both from a man's perspective who's looking to find someone, also from a girl's perspective who wants to elevate her or put herself out there in a much better situation to find the best possible prospect that she can prospect, right? That is exactly the goal. You want the best catch that you possibly can if you're a girl. So in David Burr's work, he studied about a lot of women and men, I think across 37 different cultures, which means 37 different countries or cultures, and figured, and he basically, started rating qualities that people are preferring. When I say qualities, it could be, traits or attributes, for example. We'll use those words as synonyms. So he figured that mutual attraction, so physical attraction was part of it in some part, dependability, emotional stability, etc., pleasing disposition, good health. We'll come to good health markers of that. Intelligence, a little bit, sociability, home children, refinement, etc. So these were rated highly by men who were looking for a girl to marry, right? Good looks, in fact, came at number 10 in terms of the ranking that men gave across 37 cultures. So it's not confined to one particular geography or a culture, right? So the reason I'm saying this is because just even a while ago I was asking my wife, what do you think what men overwhelmingly look for in a girl? And she said, obviously you guys, we know what you guys look for. It's always this, and it's beauty and the sex appeal, etc. And then I said, no, that doesn't seem to be the case, and that's the topic of for today. Said cool. So I also told you guys that I'll give my own spin to it. Of course, there'll be some overlaps with what David Buss and other people have researched, because it's not like I'm going to be too different from what people do. But look at it, right? So men who are looking to marry, and a lot of men actually want to marry even today. Uh, Contrary to what women thinking that men are actually looking for, men are looking for something really more and different than what you think is the reality, right? And this I'm talking from a long-term relationships, right, or long-term partner scouting prospects, right? Not the short-term mating prospects I'm talking about. That varies differently, so we'll not cover that here, right? That's different. Here, the guy is thinking, person is, will she be a good wife mother material, right? That is what we are looking for when it comes to marriage or any long-term relationship. So let's see. So here essentially then he's saying, will she be a great reproductive value, right? That's exactly what it's running through in his mind. And there are some, obviously, when you start looking at reproductive value, then you start looking at some parameters that mm, exemplify that, which obviously then boils down to youth, beauty, and virility, right? That is what, and there are some physical markers in women that men look for when it comes to indicating that, okay, this woman is of higher reproductive value compared to the other ones, for example, right? So let's go through some of the aspects here. It's okay if you agree or disagree, but these I think are quite critical considering. I'm assuming that you'll marry in your late 20s or 30s and then you're going to live till 75, which is about 40 to 45 or even 50 years of marriage. So, from that perspective, I'll talk. Great. Number one, right? Point number one. Again, I said this is not in any necessary order, but I'm just listing some parameters that I think are very relevant for a man to look for. Kindness, nicety, agreeableness, non-argumentative, right? So overwhelmingly in the world, when both men and women have been looking for kindness as the top parameter in choosing a mate, I think that's quite obvious. There is no second thoughts about on this one any which way, right? Nicety and your kindness, soft natured. So here, agreeableness is also a very important quality because in general, women tend to be more agreeable than men are. That's if you take average out all men and women, this is what you'll find, that women are slightly more agreeable than men because it's seen as a very masculine trait, disagreeing and argumentative variety. So when you see those qualities in a woman, it's not preferred for most people, and I think it causes a lot of trouble. Number two is pleasant demeanor, again, softness and femininity, right? And I think this I would say is probably the a very critical parameter to, let's say, judge someone on. I don't know how to describe this, but even in my life, I have seen a few women that I've interacted with, or let's say, seen them in the workplace or in the place that I stay. Of course, you end up seeing a lot of people, but there are this women who suddenly catch your attention as someone, even if you're married, right? Like in my case, I'll be like, oh, this could have been a great wife material, right? Or a great partner to me, right? That you start getting that feeling. People will lie that they don't think like that, but this is the truth. I'm sure even women think, right? They are looking at other men and saying, oh, he could have been a good husband to me, for example. So it's the same way. There's no shame in admitting the truth. So, and I think these are sometimes you just get that feeling or a vibe because these women who I just described, they have these qualities. It just screams out of them when you talk to them, right? Not just see them, but when you also see and talk to them or interact with them, you see that. So that their demeanor is pretty pleasant. There is a softness and oozing of feminine qualities coming out of them when they speak to you. It's a pretty interesting, right? So things like softer voice, less of a talker and a great listener, not the loud, boisterous material, and there's a sense of calmness in terms of even their gait and movement when I see them, right? And I've seen this quite often. It's not quite often. I've seen this in the last few years, but it's not very often that I see this, right? I go to gym, I see a lot of women. I don't get that feeling with most of them. In fact, none of them. But I've seen in some other cases in my previous workplace once with a girl who used to speak to me like that. How are you? The minute she speaks like that, you literally your heart melts and brain chemical just goes for a toss, right? This is what I call about that. No? I don't know if she's manipulative or not, but I'm just saying that the way they speak, the pleasant demeanor and the voice, it just drives your chemicals pretty crazy, hormones pretty crazy. Number three, after pleasant demeanor and soft and femininity is again it's closely related motherly qualities or family orientation and loyalty, right? So this again is a very big parameter to judge your partner on or your future partner on. If someone, because obviously you're looking at good reproductive value and you obviously look for good motherly qualities, right? Is she kind? Is she patient? Is she healthy? Is she loyal to you? So because all of those things become very very pertinent. So motherly qualities is something that you should look for. Good family ties, etc. Number four, yeah, we spoke about kindness, pleasantness, motherly natures, voice, etc. Not the argumentative and boisterous women. In general, when we look for physical markers, so let's say markers of good genetics, again, so what people are looking for, just like you're looking for a tall, strong man who can provide, which means he's also of higher status than you, earns pretty well, or has a chance of high provisioning, right? Protection and provisioning. That's what women are looking for in general, and similarly, men are looking for reproductive cues. Okay, and how do you and it's obviously easier to pick on the reproductive cues by looking at the health of a girl, right? I mean, when you look at symmetry of face and structure, that's it's rated very highly by both men and women, and men look for that symmetry and good health markers. When health markers then happens to be a physical beauty, which is visible to him, right? Right from let's say your lips, hair, your skin color, non-blemished skin, for example, beautiful non-saggy breast and good waist or and hips, right? These are great indicators that you can carry my child and you're under good reproductive health, right? These are great indicators in terms of health, and that is something that men obviously look for. Next point, number five. In today's generation, in particular, modest dressing and less of a skin show. Now, you might be thinking, oh, how does a dress really matter? That is how a lot of feminists argue these days. But I can tell you, no man likes his wife to show skin. Simple, whether it be it cleavage or your navel, etc. 150 or tattoos in weird places. Nobody likes it. It just screams to the man that she is begging for attention. Too much of social media usage, immodest dressing and dancing in random parties and stuff. Those are typically not traditional values that men look for. It just screams that you're not a wifey material for sure, right? Short term game affair, yeah, chalta hai, but not in terms of a long term partnership. So this is something that's not preferred. Number six, I think a very important part, which pretty much trumps a lot of aspects, is women who give peace. Just ask a lot of men, right? Do they want to go home? A lot of them will say, who wants to go home, right? She's nagging, asking me hundreds of questions, always boisterous, argumentative. But the some of the women that I've just described, when I've spoken to them, I get that vibe, right? That the soft-natured women, the way they talk. I think these are the peace givers, right? You come home, you would want to come home to them, right? They can kind of sense that you had a rough day. They'll just talk to you nicely, carry your lunchbox, even if they are tired, by the way, right? They'll ask you what is going on, how was the day, exchange a little bit of pleasantries, make a nice coffee for you. But generally, when you look at them, there is a sense of calmness and peace that, oh, I've come to the right place. I've come to a peaceful heaven, right? That is the kind of feeling some of the women are able to give. And of course, that you need to be able to decipher by interacting with them at least a few times, because the initial days they can fake it or even manipulate you, but if you interact with them long enough over phone and meet them, you should be able to find out that these women are generally at peace. They'll not come and nag you. And I think um, is overwhelmingly one of the favorites that I personally have when I look for even women to interact with. I just can't stand these loud, boisterous, skin showy women. It just I somehow detest those kind of people. I don't know why. It's just ingrained in me. But I think this I would rate pretty highly. Like if you're a peaceful woman, it's okay if you're not too attractive. Absolutely fine, right? And coming to attractiveness, in general, men and women tend to marry around the same attractiveness. Of course, there's going to be some cases in which the woman is overwhelmingly more attractive or the man is slightly more attractive. But in general, as long as the points are between 1, 1.5, or 2 on a scale of 10, it's generally considered okay. One of the issues with men wanting to marry a very highly attractive woman, let's say you're a 5 out of 10 and she's a 9 or 8.5 or 9 out of 10, those marriages are going to be very, very difficult, right? Because women are hypergamous by nature, and even you're going to be a little, men are actually quite insecure if a lot of let's say potential predators are going to be looking at your girl. So that is quite normal. The jealousy aspect obviously comes in, just like it comes for women, it comes for men too. So this is one reason men also don't prefer someone who are extremely more attractive on a scale compared to him, right? It's not preferable because she's going to attract more men of much higher status, right? That is exactly the problem that he has to contend with, and nobody is going to be ready for it. Why? Because you man wants to make sure that it is his child that she's carrying, because only she knows who the father is, and the man just believes what the woman says. So he wants to be able to invest all his time, resources, money, capital, whatever it is, or even production, everything he wants to offer only to his child. And that's the guarantee by which they are signing the dot, saying, I'll marry you, considering I'll give you these things, and you will ensure you're loyal to me, and you will provide or sire my kids in this manner. So this is something I thought I'll just talk about today. I think this aspect is very important. The last aspect I spoke about in terms of keeping the house quite peaceful. It's not just she'll keep the house peaceful with you, right? She'll make sure the kids are at peace. Engine, the house is running like a smooth engine. I mean, you don't have to worry too much. She'll make sure that's on top of her mind, which means she prioritizes that over her career, for example. So these are things I think I would rate slightly at a higher value than even sexual market value or sexual attractiveness, or as long as these things are pretty much ticked. The reason I'm saying this is women also tend to conflate and think that men overwhelmingly, are looking at, titties and stuff, and that is how they behave. Yes, a lot of us look at that because that's how we are wired, right? There's nothing to be ashamed of. But if you can trump on these qualities or have some of these qualities, and if that's quite visible, obviously over a period of time it is going to be visible, then the man is obviously going to be madly in love with you and have a great marital bliss, right? Let's look forward to that. So that's pretty much I had. If you have, feel free to share your experience of how it worked for you in marriage, or when you're looking for a spouse, whether be it a man or a woman. I'll see you next week with something more interesting, maybe the short term part. Let's see. Cheers.